What's up guys, this is Arthur for BluffTheSpot. We had an amazing feedback from my last two videos, which were moving up the stakes, the difference between the stakes, and the live play from 200 fast forward. So I decided to make a series of videos starting from 5NL to 100NL on PokerStars, and we're gonna see the difference in stakes live in action. So without further ado, our first session is gonna be at 25NL Zoom, so let's jump into the action. Alright guys, so that's going to be our session at 25 Zoom PokerStars. It's going to be our first video for the series. And we're going to start here with two hands. The first one is going to be Ace-5 offsuit on small blind. We're going to even put a small bet here versus a recreational opponent. So here on this board it's so dry that I think we can even probably just simplify and bet our entire range. On the turn, I don't think our hand gets called by a lot of worse hands unless we're gonna start to doing some unorthodox style like putting small bets, which I think it can work very well against recreational players. So I'm gonna use a 1/3 sizing here, and I'm gonna keep him calling with hands like 3x's and 8x's on his range. River is kind of whatever. We can do another 1/3 sizing or just check and try to see the showdown. Ace-4 of spades here, we decided to isolate the recreational player here. We get called by two opponents. Let's just go ahead and check this one. I do think c-betting here could be completely fine, but I think we're going to check back this time, especially because both opponents are very shorty. So oftentimes we're going to see check jams or check calls, and then I'm going to have like some extra equity on the turn and I'll have to put myself into a tough position. So again, this hand, I don't think it has a ton of showdown value, but against recreational players in which they're often going to be checking hands like Jack 10 offsuit and not turning it into a bluff on the river, I do think oftentimes we're going to win this hand at showdown. It's not going to be every single time, but I think it's enough. So yeah, as you can see, we even win that low showdown value hand against Jack 7 and Jack 8, none of them turning them into a bluff, which I think it's very bad actually. All right, so yeah, we'll keep on talking through the action, and yeah, hopefully we have a nice session here and hopefully we can get something out of it. On my last video I mentioned that the player pool at 25 Zoom would be very tight, and even at lower stakes would be very tight, and some people told me on the comments that actually the regulars were 3-betting more often, around 11 to 12% here. I've played a bit of this limits before this session, and I played a little bit of volume here, and what I see is that is actually not true. The majority of the pool is still pretty nitty. The regs that are actually playing good stats, they're actually moving up. With the 8s here against the 3x, I'm even going to fold already on the MP. We could do something else depending on the players behind. This guy is massively overfolding the blind, so I think we're not going to put too many bets on the flop. He's also raising a lot of c-bets on the flop, so yeah. 4-5 is not going to be an open 100% of the time. However, at some tables we'll be able to do it. The blinds didn't look particularly super bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold. King 8, I'm just going to fold. Again, this guy is way too tight pre-flop, so I'm just going to not mess around with him too much. So yeah, now we have pocket fours. We could have several discussions about the open size we're going to use at this stakes. I personally like to go slightly smaller on earlier positions and slightly bigger on the button, and then 3x from small blinds. This is a little bit close because this guy is playing quite tight with a 19-15 style so far, but as you can see on later positions, he's opening quite okay-ish stats. So I'm still gonna do some normal defenses. The issue here is that he's going 3x, and very often at this stakes we're gonna have to consider the rake structure. And when they make a 3x, we're gonna defend a lot tighter and 3-bet a little bit more. So this guy is looking like he likes to c-bet on the flop, and he snap check behind the flop. I'm gonna take advantage from that and look at it as kind of a timing tell and try to put pressure on turns and rivers now. With the queen 10, we could float sometimes, but with no spade or no diamond in my hand, I think we're just gonna fold against the half pot. And I do think we have a mandatory bluff here. We're gonna get him to fold some 9x's, some 10x's because of the 4-card flush. We're not gonna win every single time. This bluff is not gonna go through every single time. But if you look at the hand, we have 4 high. If he has, I don't know, ace jack here, offsuit without a heart, or ace king offsuit without a heart, we're trying to make those kinds of hands fold as well, because if we check, he checks behind, he wins, and yeah, we give him too much opportunity here to win the pot. So these sessions are usually going to be like 30-minute sessions in which I'll be playing the limit and trying to see how the regulars are playing and if there's anything we could add on it. As for the king queen here, we have an old here, super huge 3-bet pre-flop with aces, but he's probably a recreational player. We could do some 3-bets here with the 6-4. I am going to 3-bet here with the king queen and try to isolate against only one opponent. Flatting would be okay because of the big blind, but the sizing is already 4 big blinds, so I don't want to be flatting and paying a lot of rake here. This hand is just basically perfect to go for a raise here. This guy is looking like he likes to c-bet a lot, even out of position. It's a small sample. Let's see how much it is. It's 2 out of 2, so at least we have kind of a trend that he likes to c-bet very, very often. He also seems to like to go to showdown, but it's all of that. It's too small of a sample for us to take into consideration. Actually, I do think we still have enough equity to barrel the turn. I don't think overbetting. I mean, if he was 100 big blinds deep, I would definitely overbet the turn, but he isn't, so I don't need to really overbet to put all the money on the river when we bet this sizing. We probably can make something like pot or slightly over pot on the river, and we'll be able to jam. He makes our life pretty easy here by jamming himself, so easy fold. With the jack 9 here, I will include some checkbacks, especially versus regulars who are flatting the small blind. This guy looks like a normal rag, and we still have a small sample on him to have a lot of considerations. But when they flat the small blind, they're going to connect a lot well with most of the boards, basically. And we're going to have to include a lot more checkbacks. So his range is way different than a big blind's range, for example, because he's way tighter here. He's not going to defend like the entire big blind range, for example. So now we have the nuts, pretty easy bet. We're gonna even make it a 3/4. I still think he's gonna call with something like ace 10 or whatever 2 pairs he has here, and even some single ace x pairs he's gonna call. So I don't think we need to size down and like force him to a hero call with something. So with jacks here, I am gonna play both strategies, 4 betting and just calling. In this case, on this player pool, I actually prefer to 4-bet and fold to a jam. But if it was like 100 NL or 200 NL, I'll definitely call jams. And as I say, like this is a 5-bet. He's basically putting me all in there. Unless I have an information that he is a recreational player. And this information also has to rely on that him being a recreational player, but also being an aggressive recreational player. Here, just a squeeze with the king 10 of diamonds. Pretty much standard, I would say. And the reason is that we don't want to play too much as a call out of position versus 3-bets is that we basically don't want to play too many pots out of position post flop. And on big pots specifically, it's going to be even worse if we end up playing those pots. And yeah, also having some 4-bets to also deny a little bit of the rake from the side. With ace king here versus a cold call range, which is going to hit this board fairly often, I'm just going to start with a check. And here I could include some checks, but I think even c-betting should be fine. People are still not going to check raise enough, still not going to call enough, so it should be fine. I would like to be calling here at some frequency, but this board is hitting his range quite well, which means he could probably stab on a high frequency with a small sizing, and he's already deviating from that and going for a big size. So I'm just going to find the easy check fold on the flop already. I don't know if we're going to have good enough spots into 30 minutes, but hopefully we can. But we're going to have, as I said, a series of videos, so at least you can take a look at it. I'm not going to explain too much of my HUD, but for a pre-flop, you basically can see most of the stats. There's There's some ladders before it, and you can maybe assume some things. On a higher stake with better opponents, I'll probably implement different strategies here. But at this stakes, I probably think the 1/3 full range bet strategy on most boards is still going to be fairly successful. So I'm still going to simplify there. If he's a little bit shorter than that, I'm going to start opening even smaller sizings here. I guess the 3-bet is just in a fold. As you can see, I'm going to have some notes on some players that I have 0 hands on. And this is basically because I'm filtering for the a lower amount of time in my poker tracker, which means I'm gonna get stats for only for like last few weeks, which also means that I'm not gonna have too much sample on my opponents. But I just didn't want it to rely on old samples as well. So yeah, I should probably use different strategies here, but I think the range bet's too probably gonna work fairly well. And he's doing exactly what he needs to do. The problem that I see very often from players at micros or any stakes basically is what he just did. He just like snap raised. If he has, I don't know, ace 7 of diamonds here, he's gonna think about it. He's not gonna do it that fast. So pretty much timing tell, and I think we can find folds with most of our hands that don't need to continue. Like more, the closest my hand is, the more I'm gonna lean towards folding because of his timing tell. So you don't want to be doing that. I know at the stakes people are not going to be paying attention enough to that, but I still think probably not worth it. And you train yourself for higher stakes as well. When you start moving up, you probably don't want to be doing that too often. King queen suited here. Sometimes a 4-bet, as I say, out of position, but also calling quite often. This time we decided to go for a call. And then we'll check. Without backdoors, I don't think we need to float, especially versus this player pool who's going to be playing very different flop strategies on a variety of boards. He goes for a check behind. We just saw like guys checking behind hands like, I don't know, 9 high here or whatever. And we might potentially turn this hand into a bluff at some streets. I'm just thinking if we want to do it on the turn and river already, I do think we're going to go for it. Try to get him off of something like ace 10 or pocket 7s or 8-7 or ace king, for example. So we'll have to bet probably turn and river. So here we defend king 8. Seems like a good flop. We get it down on the turn with the king queen. That's nice. So usually ace high boards hit very well the impositions range. If he wants, he can have a mixing strategy on this board. As I said, he doesn't need to simplify or anything. As for my turn strategy, we can play a variety of strategies here. I personally prefer just betting myself whenever I'm playing the stakes because people are going to have fairly weak check behind ranges and I can apply fairly good pressure on this. So I decided to overbet as I'm gonna have quite a few draws there, and most of the hands that I'll be betting are gonna be like ace X's and good hands. So 5s here under again is not a hand that I'm gonna open every single time, but on this table with a very tight player on the blind, recreational player on the small blind, recreational player behind, not many 3-bets from the guys here, I decided to open, but I got 2 flats. So usually when I get flatted, I'm just going to check very often because those ranges should be fairly tight compared to mine. Unless we have significant, a guy flatting who has a significant wide range, then we can include a lot more CUFs. I don't think we ever need to call pocket 5s here. So easy fold. You might want to know some explanation on my labels. I'm just gonna stop like this and you maybe can play a game of guessing what which label means. But yeah, good luck with that then. If you wanna do that, that's gonna be fun. You can kind of guess because of the stats and how the players are playing. I'm gonna isolate here versus the recreational player with 8-9 of hearts. So that's what I'm saying, it's close. That was a tight regular. I think we wouldn't even find a fold here with the a6. This is probably even close versus a recreational, so I think we're gonna click call, but I'm still probably not sure about what to do here. As I expect people to not be 3-betting too wide, I'm out of position against him here with a hand that is often gonna be dominated. I think we're gonna click fold here with the 8-9. Ace-6 offsuit. It's gonna go with the call here. Don't think we have too much space for raising. There's not many draws in which we want to protect against. River, I think we're gonna block bet. First of all, we're gonna get called by a lot of 10x's and king x's with this size. And we also avoid getting bet by a bigger hand. Let's say he has ace jack and he decides to check behind the turn. I think we just basically lose less money against that, and we still win money against some other hands that would snap check behind, like 10 jack or king queen, for example. We could even half pot, I guess. But against this size, I think he's even going to call some deuce x's and 7x's potentially. He snap call, as we can see, with the king queen, which is a hand that he potentially checks behind. So we just avoid him to do that and avoid putting us on a tough spot if he does bet. So here, very exploitative open. This guy is folding 73% versus small blind open. And then 80% from the button open from the big blind. So even though we have a small sample, he's also playing 18-6, which means, yeah, probably easy open for any two cards here. So what we need to be careful here on this is that if we open super wide on pre-flop, our ranges on the flop are going to be super wide as well, which means on a variety of boards, we're not going to be able to range c-bet anymore, because his range, since he's so tight, he's going to be so strong in basically every board that he's not supposed to fold many boards. So the strategy is not going to work that often anymore. However, it's a common leak at this stakes that people are so massive nits pre-flop, and they are also nits on the flop. They're also going to, even though they're nits pre-flop, they're also going to overfold the flop regardless. I actually like a lot this size, and you see how difficult it is to play. I still think we're going to find a fold though. As this guy's a little bit more aggressive, he's going to find a lot more bets on turns and rivers. So, and this hand is probably like a close defend regardless, even versus a solid opponent. I don't think bluff catching this a6 would be completely unreasonable. However, versus two opponents out of position, he's putting a bet there. I mean, it's fine. We're probably going to make more money by focusing on other spots than actually like trying to find some wider bluff catchers like this. So as I said, when we have flatters in position, we're usually going to start with a lot of checking. Then we hit the ace on the turn. This guy is going to be very passive, so I don't mind, as far from I see from his stats, so I don't mind putting another check. And then we can play very face up, basically, as if he puts another bet on the river, we can probably find folds. As I say, just simplifying with a lot of range betting, not thinking too much about it. So river is going to depend a lot on his sizing. With the king eight, we could actually turn this into a bluff. We don't have that much showdown value when we get to the river. It's tough that on ace high boards, people are not going to float hands like 4 or 5 suited, for example, which would be a floated hand on a variety of other boards. So I don't think we're going to do a lot of triple barrels here, but let's see. Maybe the runouts just calls for a triple barrel and we'll have to do it. I also don't think overbetting the turn makes a lot of sense because the 7 changes a lot of the dynamics. So let's say ace king is not that strong anymore. Ace queen is not that strong anymore when the 7 pairs. So we probably just don't want to be that polarized with an overbet sizing. Now, if the turn is a 6, then I'll be overbetting a lot more because he has all the 7-8 type of, all the 8-9 type of hands, and yeah. I mean, sorry, if the turn is a 5, that just doesn't changes the dynamic too much, then he's going to have a lot of draws and he's not going to have that many completed hands or trips or straights, so I can overbet. But on this turn specifically, not that much. So we got a boost on the time bank, which is good. Jack-10 offsuit is mostly a fold here, especially on this rake environment versus this size. I think folding is best. And yeah, just goes to say, like, there are some regulars that are actually 3-betting on a higher frequency, but you can see that most of the player pool is just playing super nitty style. like massive knit, and you see that so often. I still think that majority of the player pool plays too tight, like very nitty guy with a nitty tag, but still no sample on him. Like this is super nitty as well, but low sample, very nitty, um, super nitty. You see, like, yeah, maybe some better regulars are studying and taking advantage from them, but most of the pool is still pretty bad. So here again, we're playing the small blind range, which is much tougher, much stronger than the big blind range. So we're gonna play probably a mixed strategy, which I think allows us to bet a bigger sizing. And I think this hand wants to get value, so I'm just gonna go with it. Potentially going for some 3 streets of value, so I'm gonna start betting from the flop already. I don't think he's gonna have too many 3x on his range. He's basically not gonna call small blind hands like 3-5 suited or 3-6 suited. So he's gonna have some ace-3 suiteds, and that's it. And he's probably gonna raise most of them on the turn. So if he doesn't raise the turn, I'm very confident about my hand. So we'll be betting the turn, getting some value. And that's a very unfortunate river. I am feeling the donk bet by him already, and I'll probably fold if he does. It depends on the sizing though. If he goes like half pot donk bet, I'm very likely calling. If he pots it, I mean, yeah, this is very close. We're gonna have to see if there's any chance he ever did this before, if he ever dunked before on the flop, which never happened. This is probably pretty close. He could have a lot of hands like 9, 10 type of hands, etc. The fact that he actually put the time into thinking about it, it actually makes me want to call it a bit more, because if he snaps it, he probably has it. But yeah, I just went to my guts there and found the fold. I'm probably gonna get criticized about this fold. If the guy's a fish, I'm way more likely calling here. He was looking like a bad regular from his stats. So I think a bad regular is way less likely to be bluffing there than a recreational player. And a bad regular is way less likely to be finding this weird plays as well with random hands like 9-10, for example, which is completely reasonable. I could even be getting bluffed very often there, but I don't mind just folding. It's probably a very unbalanced strategy by our opponent. So he's either massively over bluffing or massively under bluffing. We'll have to find out. As long as we have sample on our opponent, that should be a completely fine bluff catch as well. And as I said, I'll be doing that very often, calling that river. It's just a very exploitative fold for sure. So this guy is looking very tight. I'm going to reduce a little bit of my amount of bluffs here. If we think about the amount of hands that we're going to have naturally to be bluffing here, like 6x's, flush draws, and etc. Like 6x's, straight draws, flush draws, etc., pair plus straight draws, etc. We can probably just have a lot of natural bluffs. So easy call on the river. Pocket tens, not 3-betting this from big blind versus button. Interested to see what you guys think about the king's hand in the comments. I'm sure a lot of guys are gonna say easy call. So what happened here? We opened, we got 2 calls. I think we're gonna call at least once on the flop, especially versus the half pot. But you can see that again, this is probably a timing tell. It's a multi-way pot, and it's UTG, MP, and cutoff. And the guy on the MP that flats the UTG, which probably is a strong range, it's already putting a very fast bet for half pot on an ace high board's flush draw. So if he puts another bet on the turn, I'm very likely finding folds. Now, when he checks behind, if he bets the river, I'm very likely finding calls. It depends on the sizing, though. Okay, that's good. I was expecting a lot of ace axes on his range, which is actually the 5-8, which is a pretty bad flat, as you probably already know. So I will be floating very often a hand like this on a variety of boards, but I think this board is just very good for the out of position. I also see very low c-bet out of position from my opponent, so when he has very low c-bet out of position and he finds a c-bet for a big sizing out of position on a board that helps a lot of his range, I think we're just going to find some maximal folds as well. And the deuces were pretty low in my range, probably not going to be able to call too often. So I'll be 3-betting this queen 9 at some frequency, but I decided to go for a call this time. And on this board, if anything, I think my opponent should be probably playing a small sizing. Since the board is so good for my big blinds range, probably doesn't know much theory. I really don't know what to do here. It seems like a call to me, with 2 overcards, backdoor flush draw on a board that helps so much in my range. So a lot of people think that they should be leading on paired turns. You have to think how relevant the pair on the turn is to your range. So here I would way more rather lead on a 6 than on a 4, that I have way less 4s on my range than 6x's. So comparing my range to his range, I think I'll have a lot of 7x's, a lot more than him, and if anything, a lot more deuce x's than him. My blockers are not amazing, so I'm not going to go for a huge overbet. Just this should be fine to make something like ace high fold. He goes for snap raise. I mean, nice answer. Two recreationals on the blinds. Although this guy's super nitty, this guy's not 3-betting enough. Those two are unknowns. I'm gonna find this as an open S5-4. And I think this is very important for you to be, when you play the stakes, is just paying attention to the table. A lot of tables are gonna look very bad, and to a point in which you're gonna be able to open a lot of wider hands. If we do open this hand, very often we're gonna call 3-bets. We have to be careful though, if we're opening this 100% of the time and we're calling this 100% of the time against 3-bets, you can imagine how weak your calling 3-bets out of position is going to be, your range, I mean. So you have to be careful to not open it 100% and not calling 100% versus 3-bets if you get 3-betted. With this ace-4, we open. This guy's a massive nit, so I do think we can have some check behinds, but this board is fairly okay for my hand to be c-betting on. I think both options are fine here, calling and raising. I'm gonna put some min raising in the tree and see what happens. If he jams, probably very often just folding. And he calls. I do think my opponent is still gonna have some hands like ace queen type of hands and stuff like that. So yeah, let's see what happens if we put another small bet here as we improve the inequity. Again, if he jams, probably folding. Yeah, and we could took it down, as you could see, as he's still gonna float some hands like pocket jacks here, pocket queens, pocket tens, pocket nines, pocket eights. It's still very, very difficult for him to defend, even in position. And as out of position, I just don't want to be playing my hand as a call, call, fold, or call, call, and then he checks behind. So I think raising makes a lot more sense. And as for the sizing of the raising, there's some counterintuitive things here, in a sense that if he goes big, I don't really need to go big as a check raise, but because as you can see on the turn, even if with the min raise, I had a little bit over pot. So if I go big, I'm all in on the turn. And a lot of my hands that wants to go for a check raise don't really want to go all in on the turn when he calls, because I still want to have the opportunity to barrel turn for small size and get some folds as I just did. So we're about to finish the session, and let's see it out on the next big blind on both tables. I hope we had enough interesting spots for you guys. I really think there was a couple of spots in which we can discuss a lot, and we'll talk about it. I'm not going to be 3-betting this hand 100% of the time, but yeah, let's try it this time. Okay, so we hit an ace high board with a pair board. Actually, we have some backdoor flush draws as well and backdoor straight draws, but they're not too relevant. Anyways, I'm probably just gonna play a full range c-bet strategy on this board. versus most opponents. As you can see, it works very, very well as they just snap folds. This guy, I wouldn't be calling this hand very often out of position, but this guy is making a very, very small sizing, which can be very intelligent if he's doing that on the right way. But he has the fish tag or the recreational tag, so I do think we're gonna peel here and see a flop. And now we're gonna get in trouble probably. He goes for a min bet. I don't mind both options, raising and calling here. I'm gonna call to see how he reacts on turn. So if he like sizes up consistently here, very likely finding folds. The board, however, has 2 flush draws possible and some straight draws possible. And he goes only half pot, so I think we're gonna peel again, and that's gonna get us in trouble probably. All right, so we end up hitting the river against ace jack, probably. Okay, it's the ace king. All right. Queen 9 is also an interesting hand at the end, so that's gonna be fun to discuss. So queens. This needs a little bit more protection than hands like aces or kings. So if anything, I think we bet more queens than aces here. But I don't think it makes a huge difference. However, there's a recreational player on the button that I want to target. So I'm just going to start betting myself, and I'm not going to wait for them. We get raised, which is very, very interesting here. I do think he's going to have a good amount of 7x's, as we saw players flatting 5/8 suited here on these positions. I don't think we have space for folding, so we're going to call once. That's not a great turn, so if he puts another big bet, we're folding. And I'm kind of hoping for it. Yeah, I mean, this sizing is also strange, because he made this sizing on his hand. It's not like he clicks 75 and then he bets. It's like almost like half pot, and then I put another couple big blinds, and that's it, right? So I'm thinking about folding this hand, guys. Raising, like flatting MP versus UTG, which is very tight positions, then raising a pair board when I bet as UTG, which looks quite strong, multi-way, and then barreling the turn with a handmade sizing. That looks like, you see how I go for the details here. First, I go for the beginning of the hand, which was UTG versus MP, and then button flatting, which means I have a tight range. He's supposed to be having a very tight range flatting there, and then button is also supposed to have a tight range. Then we go far from theory and we bet ourselves trying to exploit the recreational player on the button, which means we're probably going to have a strong hand. He basically says, fuck that, and I'm going to raise, which means he doesn't care if my range is too strong, or he's just very confident with his hand. So to me, it seems like he has really something very, very good on his hand. He raises the flop, and then on the turn, it's the third sizing, third tell, sorry. So he had a tell pre-flop that he's strong with the flatting range from under the gun versus MP. Then he had another tell on the flop, which is raising an under the gun range and bet multi-way, which was also quite fast, but I don't remember the timing tell there. And then on the turn, he bets for a handmade sizing, which is the third tell. So 3 tells telling that my opponent has a very strong hand on a double pair board, which I don't have that much equity anymore. All right, guys. So I hope this was a nice session. I hope we get enough interesting spots. Probably the next sessions will be at 5NL or 10NL or 16NL. You guys tell me which limit you want me to play the next, and I'll decide. From 5 to 100NL, you decide. I see you guys later. Thanks for watching. We'll have another video probably next week, and let me know down below in the comments what do you think about the hands I played today. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys later. Bye.